I keep running into this idea that if a particular life path chosen in early adulthood doesn't pay off or turn out just the way we imagined it, we have to reinvent ourselves. We have to become a new person somehow. Returning to the tabula rasa state is an enticing thought. This can happen in a couple of different ways. The first way is if you've had the same career for a long time and are established in it. You've got the Rolodex of colleagues and experience and are self employed. And yet, that's not real freedom if it's in a profession you've outgrown. So, in earnest, you step away to start again. The other reason a person might want to change things is, if they're like me, they got into an industry that they're not suited for and they get out real quick. I started out life as a hairdresser after high school. This test will determine what your inherent talents are and will help us assign you a job placement for your career training, my teacher said as I sat down at a computer in grade 11. I had no idea what career path I wanted to take. I'm not good at anything. I'm quite sure I'll just be a housewife, I groaned as the computer loaded a multiple choice exam from a floppy disk. At the end, the printer rattled out what seemed like a book on tractor paper, my teacher looking through the paper concertina to see what it all said. Ever thought about hairdressing? Mr. Lundeen asked. I have a couple of aunts who were hairdressers and others in the family who are good at it, I shrugged. He was looking at my hair, which I usually wore in a bouffant because I was tired of boring 90s hair. I know of a salon just down the road from here, and they can always use a hand. You might learn a thing or two, and heck, you might even like it, he said. I was resigned to hairdressing and the temporary placement. I was fine at shampooing and finishing cuts along with handling housework. I never wanted to do it, but I didn't have any better ideas. So, after graduation, I went to a local hairdressing school. I immediately knew it was not the right profession at all, but my parents were paying my tuition, so I couldn't just quit. You sure use fancy words, my teachers, a husband and wife, laughed in response to my thanking a member of the public by saying, "That's very charitable of you. Thank you." I listened to their words, all of them. They were right. I did, even at 18 years old, have a more expansive vocabulary than they did. I saw them struggle to articulate techniques, sometimes slapping my hands out of the way as though I was just too stupid to understand if I wasn't picking up a procedure quickly enough. I was fiercely mocked that time I asked if anyone was reading a book for pleasure in the break room. At that age, I liked Michael Ondaatje's poetry, and of course, nobody there had ever heard of him. I worked in a few salons after passing my exams. Every day, I woke up feeling like I wanted to vomit. I quit after about a year, deciding to get a student loan and run away from home to go to university. I moved to Vancouver Island and for my first experience living alone. It really did feel like a Hollywood reinvention montage scene. I bought some fun new clothes, snagged my own new hairstyle, new makeup, attempted a new personality. That happened again once I got married, had the baby, and stayed home. 25 years later, in late July 2024, I had recovered from a broken ankle and orthopedic surgery. The death of my marriage was on the verge of its first anniversary. I needed to find a job. I lost the last one because the company went out of business. I walked just a block from my apartment in the center of town and accidentally found a job of sorts. I'd heard that a salon owner needed help running her place. She was ill and couldn't handle the load anymore. I went to her shop and pulled on the door. It was locked, but the lights were on. I had my hair sculpted into a French roll to make a good first impression, and I guess it worked. I was busy reading ads for upcoming festivals and events papering the window. When I turned to leave, I saw a woman in a chemical apron coming down the sidewalk, the kind of chemical apron a hairdresser wears. As I started to go my own way, she stopped me. Smiling, she said, "You look like a hairdresser. Are you a hairdresser?" She reached up to examine my work on my head. She was about 5 feet tall, making me look like an Amazon, so I bent down a bit. "Oh, yes, if you did that yourself, you know what you're doing. Come inside," she said, unlocking the door and taking me by the hand. "Oh, well, I was about to explain how I found her place and why. You know how to do hair, I can tell." She had me sit in one of the nice velour chairs in the center of the space. Okay, for transparency's sake, I do have a short background in hairdressing. I got qualified 25 years ago, but I haven't done it professionally in almost the same amount of time. I'm probably not the person you're looking for, I said, feeling like I was at a speed dating night. "I was a teacher at the college in Kelowna. I'll show you," she said, unfazed. I I don't mind being an apprentice if that helps, but I'm truly out of practice. I'll need to ask lots of questions. "Do you still have your equipment?" "Some of it, yeah. I'll go home and look at what there is, but a lot of stuff is, well, a quarter century old, and I don't feel comfortable using some of it on the public," I said, smiling. "You can't be that old," she said, putting her hand on my thigh. I knew from listening to her accent that she was a native Spanish speaker. "Yes, I am that old. My son is almost 16 now," I said, laughing. "Wow, well, you certainly don't look that old." "Perfect," she said, winking. "I just got back to work after having E. coli," she continued. "Oh my God, I'm sorry. That sounds awful." "I had a kidney transplant, which made it complicated," she said. "I fell down my back stairs and broke my ankle this past April, so I have some idea about health struggles in my own way. Everybody at the hospital hates me because I get sick all the time," she said, as I looked around this modest salon space. It reminded me of the one I tried to run while in the middle of a depressive psychosis. I was suddenly buoyed by the notion that I couldn't do it then, but I was deeply unwell and in an unhappy marriage, although I didn't understand the latter for another dozen years or so. Therefore, I stood a good fighting chance of turning that failure into a success, or so it seemed. We talked about terms and what she wanted me to do. "Where do you recommend I go for new supplies and consumables?" I asked. "Oh, you mean clippers and combs and," she started. "Yes, and regular consumables like foils, foams, sprays, stuff like that," I added, remembering that she probably didn't know the word consumables off the top of her head. She told me which establishments in town she liked and where they were. She even went to the trouble to tell me where not to go, citing they were two-faced. In all, I was there for about 45 minutes. I wasn't sold on this crazy idea, but I also didn't have any other prospects, so I made arrangements. I bought everything I needed and carried it home on the bus. I found my trade school diploma, a testimonial of merit, with my teachers' signatures on it from the year 2000, and brought it in as well. "Hey, look at that," she said, looking at the certificate in its frame with broken glass. "Oh, careful not to cut yourself on the glass," I said, worried. "I'm taking this home. My husband will put new glass in it for you." "I wouldn't want to impose," I said. "De nada," she said, waving her hand. "Gracias," I said. "You know Spanish too?" "Un poco," I said, amending the descriptor to poquito and pinching my fingers to emphasize how little I actually knew. I can understand more than I can say, if that makes sense, I said. The next day, she brought my diploma back in with fresh new glass. I worked with her for all of 3 days before she fell ill again, winding up in the hospital for renal support. I need you, Daniela, to take care of my place. You can keep the money you bring in and even use my clippers, she said on the phone, using the Italian version of my name, the way Nona and more dead relatives than living ones did. I can keep the place clean and do the housekeeping, yes, but I'm not ready for all that other responsibility, I said. But you have to. I have a lady coming in for a shampoo set tomorrow, and you have to do it for me, she said. I listened to her directions about all the aspects of what this client was expecting, feeling more and more overwhelmed. Look, I can handle a shampoo set, but I don't feel comfortable with the rest, I said, hearing my inner critic telling me to not be so stern. She's a frail abuelita in the hospital, after all. You were raised better than that, I told myself. But you have to. I'm sick, she said in a breathy voice with a slight cough. I'll take care of things as best I can, but I really don't feel good about it, I said, wanting to make it abundantly clear that this was feeling insane. A couple weeks went by. I got a call from her husband, a Kentuckian fella with a quiet drawl. Hello, Daniela. I'm calling to let you know we want you and the other girls to come out to our place tomorrow, he said. Oh no, what's wrong? She's she's on palliative care now. She stopped dialysis. All the kids are here. They guess she's got a week or so, but who knows? Okay, I'll arrange a ride out to your place. One of the others knows where you live, right? You're in Falkland, right? Yes, the others know. See you tomorrow. It was a smoky summer. The fires from California were blowing up our way, and we had plenty of our own blazes close by. I rode with the massage therapist to the house. We left the barber behind to finish a haircut. She had affirmations written all over her car, including breathe before you drive in paint pen on the steering wheel. I looked at the forest as we got further into it. She didn't say a word to me the entire 45-minute ride in both directions. I didn't try instigating conversation. Judging by her white knuckles, despite the clear, dry road, I thought it might be too stressful. If she'd been at all conversational with me, I would have offered to drive. I could have ripped this highway a new one and had a great time. I missed driving after my divorce, my ex-husband having kept our only car. We pulled into the huge drive on this large property, already littered with out-of-town pickups and cars. There was a large, prominent American flag at the front door where one of the family members met us. We were ushered into the back bedroom where she was, propped up by pillows, her skin yellow, her abdomen and extremities swollen. Her kidney is at 5%. She's cirrhotic and has an infection they can't manage, we were told, much to our astonishment and sadness. I'm still going to Mexico in October. Don't give up on me, she said softly, as we all looked at each other knowingly. We waited for our other colleague to make the drive out. I want to check on her and make sure she's coming, she said. She grabbed her phone. I thought she was going to call. Instead, she turned the phone to me. I had a camera installed to keep watch on her, she said. I looked at the iPhone screen as she watched the salon, scrolling the camera to see all angles, making sure I was seeing what she was seeing. She even used the intercom function, making the barber jump out of her skin. You coming out here? She said, as more of an imperative than a question. Yes, I'm just cleaning up, the barber said. We're waiting for you. Don't take too long, she said, looking at me with a kind of satisfied Cheshire cat smile. Oh, she'll be forever in that stupid BMW she wanted so badly. I loaned her the money for it, you know. She's Chinese, and they always have to have the best stuff, she said, rolling her eyes. When we were all assembled, she had her daughters offer us food and drink. It was me, the barber, and the massage therapist in the bedroom. When we were given our drinks, she waved for everyone to leave. "You're due for pain management in a short time, Mum," one of her daughters said as she continued to insist we be left alone. "Daniela, I really need you to take care of my place. You other girls keep doing what you're doing," she said, meaning they were allowed to show up as desired for appointments while I was a prisoner there. Nonetheless, it didn't feel proper to protest. As we stood up to leave, she hugged the barber like they were old friends. I chose not to hug her, but waved instead. I decided to keep the hours I saw fit, often taking care of customers that weren't mine, doing random walk-in work. It reminded me of the last hairdressing job I did before I quit the first time. I sat staring at walls covered in outdated style photos, faded from decades in the sun, just a bench warmer. I caught up on my reading, at least, in both cases. I left after finishing the laundry one afternoon. I was quietly rebelling with these hours, the way I did at that other job years before, by not listening to country music in the salon. I'd simply nodded along when the manager said, "We only allow country music here." I learned her schedule and played yacht rock when she wasn't around, which was most of the time. My phone rang, and when I answered it, I heard the words, "Why aren't you at work?" on the other end. "I'm being kind to myself and taking a bit of time off today. It doesn't look nice to have the place closed during the afternoon. I've been keeping watch, you know." "I need some time to consider a few things," I said, realizing I'd been tolerant of these demands from a dying woman for long enough, and I'd been hired on at a new bakery, which was still a secret. "I brought you in to do that one thing for me, and you're not. I'm giving you my clients. Do you know how valuable that is? I wouldn't do that for just anybody," she said, surprisingly energetic for someone on their deathbed, in my view. "You're not paying me any compensation. I'm working for cash. I'm doing everyone's laundry and housekeeping, and paying you a chair rental fee for the privilege? If I don't want to be there, that's my prerogative," I reminded her, feeling a little forceful but also necessarily assertive. "I don't think this is working out. I don't like what I've been hearing about you," she said. "I don't know what you've apparently heard, but I don't think this is working either," I said, relieved and exhausted. "All right, clear your things out tomorrow. I'll be sure to look for my clippers, too, and they better not be damaged," she said. "You bet," I said, ignoring the clipper comment. I was finished with the drama. I knew a karmic ending when I saw one. I slept so well despite the heat wave once I said that. "I think you'd do better to go back to baking. I still remember that cookie you gave me," she said, likely surprised at my tone. "Yep, you're probably right," I said, still not mentioning the new job. I found out through word of mouth around town that she died shortly after. It felt like the end of a soul contract. I'd been freed from my fall back onto my original trade. I was finally finished. I've been Danielle Walker. Nice to see ya.